All right, this video's got to be 34 minutes. Under 34 minutes. So I'm tempted to go erase something in case I go over. We'll see what happens. So let's talk about this mental health epidemic that seems to be very prevalent in every modern Western society. Nowhere else on Earth, just modern Western societies. You don't see third world countries with mental health disorders. You don't see it all throughout history. I'm sure there's going to be people in the comments, oh, there was crazy people in the 17th century and this and that. Look, all history, you don't know what is or isn't true as far as history. And I've got a lot of sources that I've found that tell me that the history that we are taught is like 95% false. So, there's that. And then there's also, I'm not even talking about like recent history. I'm talking about thousands of years ago. There was no mental disorders, and I'll tell you why. Because it would have costed people their lives. They couldn't have mental disorders. They had to survive. A society full of mentally ill people would have been wiped out by a society of mentally fit people. So this is how I know that it is a recent problem and not a historical one, because we wouldn't have made it this far if we had all these mental health issues. Look in nature, you don't see all these mental health issues. You ever seen a squirrel go and try to kill all the other squirrels? It's the last thing a squirrel would do. You ever seen a lion go and try to destroy its own pride? No, a lion will die for its pride. It you know what I mean? Another male lion will come and try to take it over, but that's nature. It's not due to mental illness. That's actually, it's nature is like clockwork. And so people are too. It's just, here's the thing. This whole mental health epidemic is completely manufactured. It is not produced by God. It is produced by man. And so I've been thinking lately, what's the source? What is the root cause of this mental health epidemic? And, I know people suffering from mental health issues, and there's probably a lot more people that just keep it hidden. You know what I mean? And so now, where does it come from? Where does it spring from? Now, as far as I can tell, I got a little theory here. And what I think is, I know it's manufactured. I know it's socially engineered. I know it's part of the brainwashing. It's part of the programming. Here's the thing. They need a mentally ill society, because without a mentally ill society, we would not put up with any of this. None of it. If we were mentally fit, if we were, thinking clearly and healthy, we wouldn't be putting up with this nonsense. We wouldn't have these crooked politicians going, they get a job in Congress, they got a net worth of $300,000. They leave Congress with a net worth of $20 million. It's the corruption. It's right in our face. No mentally stable society would sit there accepting a bunch of crooked criminals leading their country, making all the decisions. You got to be mentally ill. We're all mentally ill for accepting that, for letting that happen. The people making the decisions in our society do not suffer the consequences of those decisions. In fact, they are rewarded for making bad decisions for us, because they're taking everything from us. Now, how did they get it to this point? It didn't happen overnight. It takes a long time. Rome was not built in a day. And you may think, they've only been working on this for 50 years. No, they've been working on this for thousands of years. The people who control the world, they've been in control for longer than you would believe. They don't do 4-year term limits. I can promise you that. They put up this big puppet show where you think, I'm picking my leaders. What is this now? These people are... Hold on. Something might happen here. They're getting upset with each other over here. I thought they were going to pull over and get the scrap, and I would have filmed it. I would have broke it up. I would have filmed it and broke it up. But so, maybe not. But so, anyways, where was I? So, how did they get us to this point? Well, they operate on a level that you couldn't even imagine. Once I started to actually figure out what's actually going on, it's unbelievable. Go on my Patreon if you want detail. Here's the thing. They've managed to set it up to where if you find the truth, you look like a lunatic. That's, they're so slick. They're playing chess, we're playing checkers. But so, how did they get it to this point? And, I've watched people my whole life who they believe with their heart and soul that they are mentally ill. They have problems. They blame themselves for not being able to function properly within this framework of our society. And I can tell you, nobody can. Nobody can. The only people who are really thriving in this modern Western society are the people who are like sociopaths and psychopaths. They're willing to lie, cheat, and steal. They think it doesn't bother them, but when all's said and done, we're all going to learn. Some of us are going to learn the hard way. Some of us are going to learn the easy way. These people who think they're thriving in this insanity, they're going to learn. There's a price to pay for everything. Everything comes back. What you put out comes back to you. In this lifetime or the next one or the next 1,000 lifetimes, everything comes back. So don't think they're getting away with it, because trust me, they're not. But they set this whole thing up to make it look like there are no consequences. It's just chaos. This is the baseline. This is the seed that they plant in your head that I believe causes a lot of mental illness. Basically, they want everyone to believe that all is chaos. Life is just a chance chaos. A 1 in a million chance. This insignificant rock in the middle of space just happened to sprout life. It doesn't mean anything. It's just happenstance. It doesn't. None of that. That doesn't matter. What matters is getting rich. Screwing people over, that doesn't matter. There are no consequences. It's all just chaos anyway. You may as well, suck everything dry, suck everyone dry, eat up everything in sight. It doesn't matter. You're only here for a short time. There are no consequences. It's all chaos. It's all chance. So don't worry about screwing people over. Don't worry about what's right and wrong. That doesn't matter. What matters is getting your bills paid, getting your rent paid by any means necessary. Lie, cheat, steal, borrow money, don't pay it back. It doesn't matter. This is, there's no consequences. Putting yourself first, that's what smart people do. You'd have to be stupid to be worried about everyone else. And yeah, well, that's what they want you to believe, and that leads to mental illness, because then these people go through their whole life operating as if there are no consequences. I can do whatever I want to do. I can, none of it matters anyway. And then when things start coming back on them, they can't figure out why. Well, you've been taught not to read yourself. You've been taught not to use logic. You've been taught that all is chaos. Chaos is not order. Chaos is the opposite of logic. They're teaching you to not be logical, to not put two and two together. They're teaching you that. So now the baseline of it, really, as far as I can tell, they've got people thinking. So think about when I was a kid, the underlying lessons that I was learning. No one was actually saying this stuff just straight up. No bullshit. It's all very subtle, but very subtly, I was taught as a young, kid that religion is kind of for the dumb people. No one's telling me this outright. It's just what I picked up from, this is you learn in a million different ways, you know what I mean? And so the subtle information that I was being taught through a million different things, TV, movies, teachers, everything, the underlying lesson is religion is for dumb people. And the smart people, they know that there is no invisible man in the sky making decisions, deciding who's going to be punished and who isn't. That's what the stupid religious people think. The smart people know there is no God. There is, when you die, you just stop existing. This is what this is what the intellectuals and the smart people and using ice cold logic. They're facing this tough truth that when they die, they're going to stop existing because it's all chaos anyway. The only reason they exist is just sheer 1 in a billion chance. It means nothing. This is the underlying teaching. If you want to be intellectual, if you want to be smart, if you want to be brave, if you want to use ice cold logic, then there is no God. And what's that tell you? If there's no God, there's no order, there's no balance, there's no consequences. So this is the underlying philosophy that we are all kind of taught growing up in the modern West. We're also taught, don't look out for anyone. Look out for yourself. Don't looking out for your own people. That's racism. You can't do that. If anything, look out for the other people. You don't look out for your own people. That's wrong. I mean, only white people are really taught that. Every other race is taught to look out for their own people. But so they're also teaching you that, in modern Western societies, that the white people, pretty much, they're responsible for every bad thing that's ever happened. And so if you're not white, the white people owe you. It's all being taught to us in a very slick, subtle way. And so you got a lot of white people out there thinking to themselves, like, I deserve this. I deserve to, you know what I'm saying? So it's all this underlying shit they're planting in your brain subconsciously. This is where mental illness comes from. They tell you you're privileged. Dude, when I was a kid, my parents never bought me shit. They never taught me shit. I've been poor my whole life. And you know why? Because when I was younger, my parents never bought me nothing. They never gave me nothing. They never gave me no money. So I grew up thinking money is scarce. Meanwhile, my parents had plenty of money. They just didn't give shit to me and my brother, and that's the truth. But so, why I was so poor for so long is because I had this underlying subtle knowledge in my brain that money is hard to come by. And I'll never forget one time when I was about 14, I was already worried about my bills and stuff because I was thinking to myself, like, within the next 4 or 5 years, I'm going to be out there on my own. I got to start thinking about how I'm going to make money and make a living and stuff. So at some point, I heard that rent back then was like $400 a month, and I said out loud, like, maybe I should be able to get a job and pay $400 a month. And my father even responded to me, and he said, good luck finding a job paying that. My father retired from the fire department, and then he was going from job to job just out of boredom. None of them were really paying too good or this or that. So at this point in his life, he was just like, but what he doesn't realize is what an impact that statement had on me. I grew up thinking, I'm going to be lucky if I can make $400 a month. And I'm very good at analyzing myself, and I'm very good at, recognizing my own biases and stuff. And the older I get, I've been thinking of these things my whole life. And, looking back on my life, hindsight is 20/20. I realized that I came out into the world thinking to myself, like, I'll be lucky if I could afford $400 a month in rent. And when you have that subconscious thought in your mind manifesting your reality, you know what I mean? So you gotta, if you got kids, you better be careful of the things you say to them and the thoughts you put in their heads. I can tell you that much. And so, But so how do they get us to believe all this? They start us off, with the subconscious lesson that unless you're an atheist, you're a primitive, dumbbell, superstitious, you can't handle the truth, and that's fine. We'll let you sit there and play with your little Bible and go to your little church, and we'll humor you, pat you on your little head, and that don't take those people seriously, though. If you want to be serious in this world, you got to know science. It's this buzzword for all the intellectuals. We listen to the science. They think they're so fucking smart. If you knew anything about science, if you knew anything about geology, biology, chemistry, physics, if you actually understood science, and you weren't just using it as this buzzword to seem smart when you're really the complete opposite of smart. But so it's like, let's talk about science. So we're taught that life can only exist in what they call the Goldilocks zone, which is just the perfect set of conditions, which is very rare. It's 1 in a million chance, like we've been taught, with liquid water and gaseous air, and just you got to have just the perfect circumstances which don't exist anywhere. That it's a 1 in a billion chance for life to even exist. This is what they're taught. This is what they're teaching you. But if they actually studied biology and geology and actually learned about science, they would see, if they actually studied nature just a little bit, they would see that there's environments on this planet which are not in the Goldilocks zone. Look at the top of the Himalayas. It's completely frozen. There is no liquid water. It's a very harsh, unforgiving, rigid environment where, according to their logic, life shouldn't be able to exist there. There's a whole ecosystem. There's apex predators up there, snow leopards, 80, 100-pound cats living off the land in the harshest conditions you can imagine. In order to have apex predators, you need a whole food chain. Apex predators don't eat icicles and evergreen trees. You know what I mean? So their theory goes right out the window right then and there. Right at the top of the Himalayas, you got a whole food chain. You got a whole ecosystem. Now let's go to the other end of the spectrum. Let's go to the deepest part of the ocean, where there's thermal vents, where there's vents in the ground, which the hottest parts of the earth are heating up the water in the ocean. The water down by the thermal vents is like hotter than boiling. And guess what? There's a whole ecosystem down there. There's shrimp, there's fish, there's a whole food chain living. And so these animals down by the thermal vents, they're living in boiling salt water. So is that part of the Goldilocks zone? I don't think so. You know what I mean? So right there, if these people were even a fraction of the intelligence that they think they are, they would know that actually life is not this 1 in a billion delicate thing that can only happen in a 1 in a billion chance. Actually, it's an unstoppable force that happens frequently because it's unstoppable. You can't stop it. Throw a piece of bread outside, it's going to have its own ecosystem in like a week if it doesn't get eaten by some other life form. But, my point is that life is unstoppable. The fact that it can exist in every corner of our globe, in every environment, for all we know, there's life on asteroids in space that aren't even orbiting a sun. From as far as I can tell, life, it sprouts up at every opportunity. It's not some 1 in a billion thing. It's actually a very common thing throughout the universe, according to the things that I've found. But my point here is that people need to realize that it's not all chaos. There is order, there is balance, and so here's the thing. What's the definition of insanity? I think I forget who said it. It was Einstein or something. It's repeating the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. So really, we can simplify it to chaos. Mental illness is chaos. They believe in chaos. They believe in there's no logic. I'm going to keep doing the same thing over and over, and I'm going to expect a different outcome because I am not using logic. Because my philosophy is based on chaos, not order. Logic is based on order. And repeating the same thing over and over and having the same outcome but expecting it to be different, that's based on chaos. That is not based on logic. That is based on chaos. So, hopefully I'm making sense here. I'm trying to explain the underlying issue is people, they don't believe in order. They don't believe in balance. They believe in chaos. And when you look at the societies we grow up in, even down to the underlying subtle lessons we're being taught, they're teaching you that there is no order. It's all chaos. Look at the people in control. They're all lying and cheating and stealing. Look how much money they have. Look how good they're doing. This is the lies that, so it's chaos. There's no order. There's no balance. There's no consequences. How could there be? Look at Nancy Pelosi, all the insider trading. Look how rich she is. She lives in the lap of luxury. That's not order. That's not balance. Shouldn't she be punished? Shouldn't she be suffering because of her dishonesty and her selfishness and her short-sighted and all the damage that her and all the people like her have done to their own societies? Where's the balance? Where's the consequences? Where's the order? Well, I can tell you one thing. There is order, there is balance, there are consequences, and God is very real. I can tell you that much. Now, is God an invisible man floating around in the sky thinking, oh, Joey was good this week, let me reward him? No, that is not how God operates. God is the creator of all things. He is God. God is beyond what we can understand. But this is how they trick you into thinking it's not real. You got to realize you're looking at the world through the eyes of a person, which is almost an animal. Our perspective, our knowledge, our intelligence is very limited. There are entities out there in existence that that are beyond our comprehension. Go do some DMT and see what you think after that. You know what I mean? I've never even done it, but I've learned a lot of things. I didn't need it. It'll come to you if it's if it's necessary to teach you. It hasn't crossed my path yet, and if it does, will I do it? I don't know. Ayahuasca, DMT, whatever. Would I do it? I don't know. Probably. But here's the thing. I don't need it. I already learned what it could. I'm sure it can teach me some things, but we'll see. This is the thing. There is this intelligence behind nature, behind creation. There is an intelligence. So if it's meant for me, if I am meant to learn whatever it has to teach, sooner or later it will cross my path. So I know there is order. I know there is balance. I know it's not chaos. I know nothing happens by chance. I know there's no such thing as a coincidence. I know it's all orchestrated very carefully by a being that is far beyond what we could ever comprehend. But I know enough to trust God, and I know enough to know that God knows better than me. So I know that everything happens for a reason. I know that beyond any shadow of a doubt. And so, this is how they get you all. This is how they get everyone mentally ill. They've got your baseline philosophy is based on all is chaos, and that leads to mental disorders. And here's the other thing that they don't teach you. This is a very important lesson right here, very important secret that they are keeping from you. What you believe on a subconscious level is going to manifest in your life. So they've been working on you your whole life to make you believe in chaos. Once they got you there and you don't believe in anything, it's all just chance, no consequences. Once they got you there, they can make you believe just about anything because there's no sense to anything at that point. It's all just chaos. And so once they get you believing on a subconscious level, I'm the problem. Not, this is, the people in control of society, they're doing the best they can to help us all and make everything good. So I must be the problem because things aren't working out for them. I keep trying to sell my life for a little bit of money, but I still can't pay rent, and then I lose the job, and something's wrong with me because there's other people out there getting through it, and I can't seem to get it figured out. Once they got you believing that you are the problem on a subconscious level, that you have a chemical imbalance, you got something wrong with your brain, once you believe that subconsciously, you're going to manifest it. You're going to turn into it. You're going to become mentally ill once they get you to believe that. Depression, if they get you to believe that you are depressed on a subconscious level, you're going to be depressed. If you know what I mean? All this underlying subtle information that they have been feeding you your whole life is very unhealthy. They're trying to make you feel insignificant. They're trying to make you feel at fault. They're trying to make you believe that if you don't play along by the rules that they made, you're fucked, buddy. You're going to be eating out of a dumpster. You're going to be living out of a shopping cart. Well, let me tell you something from experience. At some point long ago, I realized that I was living under a threat. That I was, fumbling around trying to get jobs. Never resting for a second. I always got to get my bills paid, this and that. And then one day, it all came crashing down once again. Multiple times it came crashing down on my head. And then this last time it came crashing down on my head when I lost a construction job. And I was thinking to myself, I was scared. I'm like, I gotta pay rent. I gotta get a job. I gotta, that's all I'm thinking. I'm sitting on my couch, tensed up, scared. And then it hit me like, I was thinking, what could I have done different? And I came to the realization there was nothing I could have done different. I did everything I could. I worked as hard as I could. I showed up every day. I didn't ask for days off. I never asked for days off. After I lost that construction job, my boss paid me an extra couple of $1,000, which I didn't even expect. That was real nice of him. And I was like, he's like, when he was telling me that he had to let me go, I'm in the office, and he's like, he could tell I was scared shitless. He's like, I'm going to pay you for all the vacation time you never took. So you're going to have, your situation ain't as bad as you think it is. And it was true. Over the next couple weeks, he sent me like probably between $1,000 and $2,000, which I was expecting to get like $400, so he really helped me out there. But it was, God looks out for you, bro. But here's the thing. And so I realized, like, you did everything you could. There was nothing else you could have done. And that gave me comfort. That made me less afraid, because I realized that I'm not the problem, dude. I am not the problem. And so I started thinking to myself, well, this must be happening for a reason. And I started thinking even deeper, like, did you want to spend the rest of your life busting your ass and being broke and not having anything and best case scenario, you become a superintendent, you're in charge of every job, you're traveling all over the Southeast to be in charge of construction jobs, very high stress position, being a superintendent. If anything goes wrong on this $1 million building, it's your ass. And so, did I want to spend the rest of my life that way? No, I sure didn't. And so I was thinking to myself, it's scary and I'm scared, but there's a reason, and God is actually looking out for me. God is trying to teach me something here. I don't know what it is, but it's not just chaos. It's not just chance. This is happening for a reason. And that belief made me a lot stronger and a lot braver. And, this is how I ended up on the path I'm on now. And let me tell you something. Thank God I lost that job. And thank God I lost all the jobs after it. Thank God for that. God knew what he was doing. I didn't. What I wanted was my bills paid. I wanted my comfort. I wanted my security. God said, I understand what you want. Here's what you need. God said, I'm going to turn you into 10 times the man you're trying to be. And let me tell you something. Thank God for it. I'm grateful for it. And so here's an example. So this job that I was so afraid to lose, within the first year or two I'm working this job, I ain't got no money. They're paying me like minimum wage. In their defense, they were planning on making me a superintendent. I would have been making a lot of money. They're teaching me the business. They're doing me a favor. They're not going to pay me a lot. They got me doing all the shit work around the job. I'm learning from the bottom, and they're planning on bringing me to the top. They like me. They want me to be a super. They feel that I'm responsible and trustworthy, and so they like me. But it ain't really working for me. I'm barely making any money. My brakes are going out on my car. This is maybe the first year or two I'm working for this company, and I'm driving around with these brakes that are grinding, that sound like, it sounds like someone's got a metal pipe scraping it across concrete. This is the sound it makes every time I hit the brakes. I know I need to get my brakes fixed, but I can't afford the $300-400 to get it done. I can barely afford to pay my rent and eat. So what do? I drive around with these brakes that do not really work. And finally, after months of this, and they got me driving far to jobs, who do I complain to? Who do I borrow money from? This is the other thing. I got a whole family of people. I can't borrow money. It's crazy. They got us all fucked up. In a normal society, we'd all be looking out for each other. No one would be driving around in a death trap like I was. And so I'm driving around. I can't ask nobody for money. I don't even want to be embarrassed, but and so I'm thinking to myself, this is life. You ain't no little baby kid asking everyone for help. This is it. This is what I was thinking back then. I was mentally ill. Let me tell you something. I was mentally ill back then, driving around in that death trap. And so one day, I'm driving down the road. I hit the brakes. They do their grinding sound. And then all of a sudden, that grinding sound stopped, and my brakes went out. And what do? What would you do if you're driving down the road and your brakes went out? What would you do? Put yourself in that position. You're driving down the road 30 miles an hour, 30, 40, 45. I was on a 6-lane road. Damn, I'm running out of time. What would you do? Your brakes go out. What do? Most people would crash into whatever is in front of them. You know what I did? I pulled the emergency brake. I didn't even pull it hard. I pulled it as if I was hitting the brakes. Cool as a fan. God was with me. And I brake with the emergency brakes, real slow, real calm, real cool, and I stop at the light. And I'm like, holy shit, thank God I made that decision. I didn't just panic and crash. I used the emergency brake. And so I'm running out of time. I'm going to have to finish this in another part. All right, so where was I at? So we're flying down the road. We got no brakes. And we're about to die. And then I pull the emergency brake. I managed to stop my car without killing myself or anyone else. Thank God, God was with me. So if your brakes ever go out, use your emergency brake. Use it as a regular brake. It works as a regular brake. You take it easy with it. You don't just yank it and come. If whatever situation you're in, if you got to yank the brake, you got to yank the brake. But if your brakes go out, you got to stop at a light. Just use it like a regular brake. I drove home using the emergency brake, and then I'm telling you, God looks out for you. So then the superintendent on the job that I'm working on, which is far, it's in Wesley Chapel. I got to drive like over an hour to get there every day. My superintendent on that job, Terry, this old hillbilly from Alabama, his truck is in the shop, and me and Terry live like a couple blocks away from each other. And so I had to give Terry a ride to the job. And I was like embarrassed to even pick Terry up with my brake situation. So I'm driving Terry to the job, and he's like, what the fuck? What are you doing with the brakes? I'm using the emergency brake. He's like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm like, dude, I ain't got no brakes. And Terry's like, are you insane? I'm like, dude, I can't afford to fix them. What do you want me to do? He's like, they don't pay you enough to even fix your car. I'm like, dude, believe me, I don't want to be driving around like this. And Terry's like, holy shit. Fortunately for me, Terry really liked me. Terry was cool. Terry knows how to fix. He's one of these hillbillies from Alabama. Knows how to fix everything. Cars, build buildings, that type of person. Terry's like, man, he's like, I'm going to come by. He's like, come by my house after work today. He's like, go get some brake pads. Come by my house. I'll help you do it. I'm like, dude, thanks, you know. So I go to Terry's house. I get the brake pads. I go to Terry's house. Terry does it for me for free. Doesn't even charge me. I just had to buy the brake pads. And Terry's like, dude, your rotors are fucked, this and that. He's like, this is a temporary fix. He's like, I'm putting the brake pads on, but you're going to need a major brake job as soon as you can afford it. He's like, and if it starts doing that shit again, let me know. He's like, you can't be driving around with no brakes. I was mentally ill because I was relying, you know, this is how I was raised, in a mentally ill society, risking my life for $7 an hour. This is what is expected of us. Otherwise, you got to go eat out of a dumpster. And let me tell you something, after enough time passed and enough shit blew up in my face, I said to myself, you know what? I'm not living under this threat no more. They got this subtle underlying threat. If you don't play by our rules, you're gonna be fucked. Or else play by our rules, or else, and you're gonna be eaten out of a dumpster. So I said, you know what? I'm tired of this shit. I want to see what or else is. You keep threatening me with this shit. Let's see it. I'm gonna call you out. Go do your worst. I ain't playing no more. And they did their worst. And I was out there in the street, freezing, wet, hungry, rough, hard time. But you know what? They never broke me down. That I won in the long run. You know what I mean? I called them out on their bullshit. Do your worst. And I don't give a fuck no more because I'm done. I trust God. Your threats don't scare me no more. And so I went through what I went through. Watch my previous videos if you want the details. Let me say one more thing. This video is getting longer than I want it to be. But I want to say something else. They got us all believing in chaos. There's no order. If you study nature, you'll see there is order, there is intelligence behind it. How does an insect know to camouflage itself as a leaf? There's insects that look exactly like a leaf from a specific tree. It's their camouflage. You're telling, what, did the insect wake up one day and say, we need to change our shape to that leaf? This way we can blend in better, we won't get eaten as fast, and we can sneak up on our prey. The insects don't have that type of intelligence. So, where did the intelligence come from that decided to put camouflage on animals, that decided to create the angler fish, which has a piece of bait that it dangles around in front of it, and when the small fish go for it, the angler fish eats it? The angler fish didn't design that, but it is intelligence. Some intelligence designed that. The last thing I want to say here now, they teach us in school, life evolved on Earth, 1 in a million chance. It was this primordial soup where the molecules turned into, at some point, these dead, inanimate molecules. They turned into living, independent cells consuming each other. And they just breeze right over that part. And then they tell you, well, then the cells became multicellular. And next thing you know, you got these complex organisms, multicellular organisms. But they skipped a very important part. And that is, what caused the inanimate, dead molecules to become living, independent, operating cells, organic? How did it go from inorganic, inanimate, to organic, animate? How did it go from dead to alive? Ask any biologist to explain that to you like you're a 3-year-old, and they're not going to be able to explain it to you. I've even asked AI. AI even admits, we can't explain that part. Well, the way they taught me, they didn't tell me they couldn't explain that part. They just breezed over it. They acted like it's understood, and they taught it to me as if, yeah, the molecules turned into cells, and then they just pass right over that part. And so, what force, what caused the inorganic dead molecules to become organic living cells? Ask any biologist. I want to hear it. I've argued with med students over this. I even stopped arguing with the guy. I felt like I was making him feel stupid. I was like, these med students that you think are smart, they're not smart. They're being taught nonsense. They're regurgitating it. Their job is to sell you pharmaceuticals. They don't know shit about biology. They don't know shit about science. You're probably better off going to a veterinarian than a doctor nowadays. Anyways, that's the end of this video. I appreciate y'all. Thanks for the subs. Thanks for the likes. Thanks for the tips. Thanks for the channel members. And thanks for the Patreon members, especially. And, yeah, I'm a little behind this week. Once again, car troubles. Maybe I'll do a video about it. It's not even worth talking about. Another mechanic, dishonest, believes in chaos, thinks he can get away with fucking me out of money, fucking everyone out of money. And then you look at the reviews, they got 4 stars, and yet every other review is negative. Explain that to me. You know what I mean? So maybe I'll make a video about that next. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, appreciate y'all. If you want a response to your comment, try to get it within the first 30 comments. I got to get to working on my Patreon video. And yeah, so that's the end of this one. I appreciate y'all. Ask me anything in the comments. Feel free to argue with me. If you know, in a civil way, I respond civilly. But yeah, that's the end of this one. I appreciate y'all, and I'll see you on the next one. Everybody have a good one.